Welcome back into the Hockey Hub. Kasey and Sophia joined by Ty Anderson from 98.5 talking Bruins off season. And you know what? We're going to have a little bit more fun with this because I think we've all said what can be said. We don't know what's going to go down until the season gets going and these guys get through training camp. But I warned you at least. We're going to let you put the GM hat on for a minute and talk about these lines a little bit. A couple different projections out there. And the main one that a lot of us go off of being daily face-off. We know what the first line is going to look like. Geeky, Lindholm, Pasta. Second line is projected at Zacha, Middlestat, Arvidsson. Third, Janot, Mitten, Potra. And then you got Beecher, Corrali, and AC Mott. There's a couple names I was shocked that weren't even in the mix of this. Hustadinov being one of them, who they just added money to and value to. I know Kasey is another guy that had an end of the season injury, upper body that being. But what would you change with this projected lineup?
I don't want Matt Potra playing wing. I think he needs to be a center in this league. I think that wing, he just never looks comfortable. This is a guy that I want touching the puck through the middle of the ice. I think that he's got the vision, he's got the craftiness. So I would want him at center. And then at right wing there, I'd probably put Fabian Lysell. This is a player who's a first-round pick. I thought he looked good to end the year. He got better with more minutes, better opportunity. And kind of playing off what we talked about last segment, it's time to find out, right? I don't need him playing in Providence anymore, doing the weekend trifecta. I need him up here and seeing what kind of player he is. Is he a middle six scorer? Is he a fourth line energy guy, or is he a bust? We got to find that out at some point. And you drafted him over 4 years ago now. Now's the time to find it out because, we talked about players wanting trades. I don't want to report that because that's, again, I don't know anything about that, but if you're a first round pick and you're still in the minors 4 years in, don't you kind of want a fresh start, right? And so I think you should find out what you have here with this player. So I would like him to make the roster. I have a hard time envisioning all three of Potra, Minton, and Middlestat making the roster. I don't think they're going to trade Middlestat now. It's nearly, it's mid-July. That move probably would have happened at the draft, but I have a hard time seeing all three of those players making this roster. And so if I'm gonna go with any of the 2 out of 3 there, I'm probably putting Potra in the middle, and I'm letting Minton begin his year in Providence, playing all situations and reassessing where we are in, say, mid-November with him.
Wait a second. I love this take. Obviously, Don Sweeney, something he repeated a lot was that guys are going to be fighting for positions, internal competition, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all before. But you're saying out of training camp, we might not see Middlestat on the roster?
No. I think he's here now. It's just I entered this whole offseason going, I don't see how you have a lineup that has Middlestat, Potra, and Minton on the lineup on opening night. I had a hard time seeing that. And so I think the window to trade him is probably expired now. I thought he would probably be a guy that, if you didn't love his game, and let's say a contender did, or a team that has a lot of second-round picks did, and you wanted to move up to get a guy, that might be a way you clear money and move up the board. Didn't transpire that way, so I feel like he's here. But where does he play, Sophia? Marco Stern was on 98.5 The Sports Hub after he was hired, and he was talking about all the centers they had, and he said, Middlestat, we'll see. So where does he play? Is he a center? Is he a wing? How do they view him? That's what I want to know, because it was kind of hard to get a read on him, right? He ends the year playing on a line with Vinny Lettieri and Cole Koepke, neither of whom are here anymore. And so what do they envision for a player like Kasey Middlestat, who, when they acquired him, Don Sweeney outright said, not our prototypical Bruin, but a guy that we think we can use in this fashion. So he's a kind of an interesting player, I think, in that regard, even, without potentially being traded.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a big question mark around where he plays, how often he plays, and I do think that there's going to be some internal competition for that spot. But I get what you're saying, not all of them at the same time. I'm so on board with the young guys though, with Lysell. Can we please just see what we got in Lysell? And I know that he had that stretch. I meant to look it up. I think it's 10 games at the end of the season, but he finally had a stretch of back-to-back games. Want to see what he's got. Fraser Minton, Matt Potra agree as a center. And you never know. I mean, we're hoping that these guys, where they were drafted and what they were projected to be, we're hoping that they pick up, some of that secondary scoring. But all things here's my take. if the healthy guys are healthy, stay healthy, and they produce where they're supposed to produce. If Lindholm has a better year, if Zacha has a better year, if Geeky keeps where he picks up where he left off, and then you have Minton and Potra and maybe Lysell with some consistent secondary scoring, this is not a bad team. Like this is, and Sway, let's throw Sway in there, performing how he needs to. I don't think this is as bad as people are worried they could be. Am I off my rocker, Ty?
No, I think so. Like I looked at this offseason and I said they have to find a way to add 40 to 50 goals. If you can score 40 to 50 more goals than you did a year ago, you're going to be around the top half of the league in scoring. And if you're able to do that and you get the good goaltending, you're basically going to be in the playoffs. You look at the way that the league has gone last year. The teams that were in the top half of the league in scoring basically all made the playoffs. I think the only two that didn't were Columbus, who they were in it until I think game 81, and Buffalo. Buffalo is Buffalo, right? And so if you can get more goals and you can squeeze more juice, out of this orange that is this roster, as you mentioned, those guys you named, like it should be easier, right? It's just, does it happen consistently? That's my big thing. Like there's a lot of pressure on Morgan Geeky to now just be a 30-goal scorer. He was 30-goal scorer for the first time in his life this past season, but now he's got to be that guy. That's why he got paid, so you respect that part of the equation for him. But, like, they don't have a lot of pressure. They don't have a lot of fallback, in the event that some of these guys that you're mentioning don't return to form or don't succeed like they did a year ago. And that's, like, the dangerous game. That's why I gave them a C-, because – you're never going to win a championship on July 1. It's just not going to happen, as we all know. You're not going to win a championship on April 1, for that matter. But you want to have enough weaponry, right, in your arsenal where you feel comfortable that you can win games in a variety of ways with a variety of scorers. And so that part has to emerge. What you're talking about, like, we got to see that, right? And if we don't, it might be another long season. But I'm open to giving all of these players that we're talking about some actual rope because we know they have talent. We know Matty Potra has talent. We know that Fabian Lysell has talent. We just got to cultivate it. We got to see it. We got to see it at this level and see how it makes a difference for this Boston Bruins team.
You talk about weaponry, and the huge thing that's kind of discussed under that category at the moment are third and fourth lines. We've seen them help push the Florida Panthers to a championship back-to-back times. So kind of locking in on the third line projection for a second. Tanner Jeannot, Fraser Minten, Matthew Potra. I like your take on Potra coming in center. I've heard fans mention it before. His first two NHL goals versus the Ducks, he was playing along or central to Geeky as well as DeBrusk. But do you think that with this third line being Jeannot and Minten, two guys that are known to create space? Tanner Jeannot talked about it as in his induction to Boston. He can create a lot of space, which can create opportunity for Potra. Potra really good with his release and creating passes and kind of getting to the middle of the ice, as you mentioned. Nobody has to stay static as you're trying to penetrate the net. Then you got Fraser Minten. He's a pest. He's always around the net. Do you think that he can still be productive on the wing if he's playing with two guys that can create space and kind of polish off opportunities he creates?
He could for sure. I think for me, wanting him at center has everything to do with his vision, his poise, his ability to kind of suck guys in, and create an opening for his line mates when his game is on. And that's kind of, I really want that in the middle because I don't know if you have a ton of that naturally right now on your pro roster, right? Like I think James Hagens will do a lot to address that, but I think as your current pro roster is set up, you don't have a lot of guys that can do that. And so that's kind of why I want him in the middle. And I like the idea of Jeannot being his bodyguard, so to speak, because, the biggest thing that's kind of hurt Matthew Potra through 2 seasons now of pro hockey has been just getting absolutely lit up, getting hit with heavy force, again and again, it feels like. And so I feel like having Jeannot there would help him, but also it's just, for me, it's the vision. I want that down the middle of the ice because I think that can create some mismatches on the wings for his line mates when his game is going.
All right, I like that. I know, didn't he get knocked into New York's bench towards the end of the season, or was it versus the Rangers here at the end of the season?
It sounds
he could use
right.
A Tanner Jeannot. He could use a Jeannot.
And he's, the other thing about Potra is that he's a good skater, but he's not like a burner, right? And that might lead well to a guy like Tanner Jeannot, where he's got good skating wheels, but like it's not going to be too fast for a guy like Jeannot, right? Like that, and that might be a kind of a weird thing to say, like for the player who's 20, 21 years old, but like that might, like I felt personally that the best version that we saw of Trent Frederick was actually when he was playing with Matty Potra. And if Tanner Jeannot is a bit like Trent Frederick, maybe a bit more tenacity, I kind of like that one too, and what it could be, if the players can find their games.
Yeah, he had that 1-6 stretch pass to Frederick right before Frederick got traded. So I'll ask you this, kind of switching over to the draft conversation. Can you tell me what you would like for these lines to look like? Say that we finally get to insert a James Hagens into the mix and potentially even like a William Moore down the stretch. We got a lot of centers, a lot of left-handed defensemen. That's driving me nuts. But who would you like to see get that first opportunity coming up here from the draft class?
Well, it definitely feels like James Hagens is that guy, right? I mean, he's got electric skill set, the puck senses, the speed, the vision. One thing I love about James Hagens is that and the Bruins love us as well, is that, he has been electric against his peer group, right? And so I think I'm really excited to see what he does at Boston College this year. I mean, because I think last year, like, there was a lot of people that knocked, kind of the season he had, but he was basically a high school senior. He was 17 when the year started, and he's up there as a point per game, and we're saying that's a bad thing. It's like, well, no, the context matters, right? And so I want to see what he looks like at BC. I want to see if he can be a takeover kind of guy and really dominate games. Doesn't have Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard, so he's going to have more opportunity to drive the bus, so to speak, for the Eagles there. And so I want to see more of that. And if and when he comes up this season, I want him in a top 6 role. I just do. I feel like that's like the Bruins haven't had a player like this probably since Tyler Seguin, but Tyler Seguin came into a loaded Bruins team. Not really the case this time around. And so this is a player that I want to see playing with other skill guys right away. Like that's almost like a non-negotiable for me, because otherwise I don't know if you're going to get the full James Hagens experience if he at 19 years old is being asked to drag line mates around the ice. Like, no, I buy the Ferrari, I want to go fast. That's kind of how I feel. And I feel like James Hagens is a player of that nature. That's just how I feel, though. I know you guys might feel a little bit different about that, just based on how important a draft pick he is in the development process of a player that you project to be a future franchise center.
No, I agree with you. I want to see him 100%. And I really like the Tyler Seguin comparison. I don't, in terms of like hype and everything. And again, back to the point before the break, this is the time to do it. Like, I asked Fraser Minton this when he came up, and, guys don't like to give answers that makes them sound like they're admitting that the season's over. I kind of asked them a little too soon when they were still technically not out of a playoff position. But we all knew that it wasn't going there. But I basically asked him, and I had a really long talk to Morgan Geekie about this. And he said it was a really good point that when you're young and there's pressure on you to, like, you're coming up, you may be called up for 1 game, maybe 5, and the team is like 2 points out of a playoff position, it's really scary, because if you make a mistake and you cost them those 2 points, you're like, oh, great, the season's over. But if you're, 10 points out of a playoff position, you can play a little bit more free and a little bit more loose. I know that we don't want these guys to be playing as though they're not going to be making the postseason. But again, this is the year. This is not the year that the Bruins got knocked out of the Stanley Cup final in 2019. 2020 is going to be their year, and they got to, make it and get back there. This is a year where we're like, maybe we'll make the playoffs, maybe not. I want to see James Hagens. I want to see, like you said, Fabian Lysell. Connor Ryan said a good trajectory for him would be to do his year at BC and then kind of come up in March. Do you want to see him sooner than that?
Well, I got to note that Connor Ryan is biased right there because he's a Boston University fan. So he's thinking that the Eagles are going to be done in March. Yeah, so he's just rooting for the Eagles to go like 0-30, and then he comes up in March. No, I want him to do a full season in college. I do. I think that, he's still so young, right? And the Bruins don't have to rush him for these reasons you're talking about, right? Like, what do we think this team is going to be? If everything works out, they're contending probably for 2nd or 3rd in their division, more likely a wild card team. And so it's not as if James Hagens is going to come in and put them over the top and be a Stanley Cup contender, and it's going to make them that much better in spring 2026. If we're wrong, Bruins, clip this, put it all over social media. Ty was wrong once again. But, because of that, this isn't Charlie McAvoy in 2017 where the Bruins just simply ran out of bodies and had to bring him up despite not really wanting to play him in the playoffs. You can be a little bit more patient here. And so I would like to see him get a cup of coffee with the Bruins by the end of the season. But I do want that full season, the NCAA tournament, the Frozen Four, perhaps, for given how good BC is projected to be. I do think there's value in that, right? And so I don't want to rush that. And I know a lot of Bruins fans are he's the shiniest new toy out of all the new toys that we've had in 15 years. But patience, going back to what we saw off the jump here, patience is a must with a player this important. When he gets here, I want him playing big minutes, but I'm not rushing the getting here. I think he's still got a lot to prove in BC, and not in a bad way, but more of a, you're the best prospect in college hockey, go be that guy. I want to see more of that in his 25-26 season at the Heights.
I'm here for it because college hockey is just about to get that much more competitive with CHL players now joining as of August 1st. You've got all the hype around Penn State now. I mean, immediately their odds are saying that they're going to win everything this upcoming season. So granted, the size, the competitiveness that he's going to be going against in this upcoming season, I think it's only going to make him that much better when he finally does put on a Bruins sweater. I wouldn't rush it at all.
Yeah, and I think we're so used to, Matty Potra came up here because the Bruins lost Bergeron and Krejci. Charlie McAvoy, who I mentioned, came up here because the Bruins had 7 injuries on the back end during their series against Ottawa in 2017. You're not that team anymore. You don't have to rush that. You can take your time here a little bit, and it's a player whose development you can't mess up, right? And I kind of go back to, I don't know if it was breakup day or this past availability, but, Sweeney kind of acknowledged, hey, if we could do a redo, we probably don't have Potra make the team in 23-24. We probably send him back to the OHL, but, he looked good in camp, so we made that call. It's don't do that with a higher ceiling player like James Hagens. Be patient. Understand development is not linear and that he's still got some more levels to clear down in the NCAA before coming up here to the NHL.